Chapter 81 Netherworld White Tiger. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It was looking grim for Auckland. Many students had already bailed, unable to watch anymore. The Mo brothers and Tianheng were tearing Auckland apart. Feng Qianli had no choice but to face him. Tianheng's lightning crackled against Feng Qianli's defenses. After battling for so long, Feng Qianli's energy was depleted. Each strike of Tianheng's claws widened the cracks in Feng Qianli's shell. Coughing up blood, Feng Qianli refused to back down. One more claw and the shell would shatter. A worthy opponent, Tianheng said, admiring Feng Qianli's resilience. A hush fell over the arena. The Auckland students felt humiliated. Their team was getting thrashed on their own turf. Up in the VIP box, Principal Jackson sighed. He's a good kid, just too stubborn. He explained to his companions, he's my adopted son. Grew up here. He'd die for Auckland. He'll keep fighting, even when it's hopeless. We just aren't strong enough. It's time to concede. Salas's eyes flashed. Wait, there might be a chance. A chance? Jackson looked at the arena, confused. Daya watched Feng Qianli's unwavering fight, and it stirred something within him. Years of hardship had hardened him. He was always calculating, never showing emotion. Only around Zhu Zhuqing and the others did he let his guard down. Every interaction was a transaction, but arriving in the Heaven Do Empire had changed things. Kind Principal Jackson, determined Feng Qianli, Dai Yuanyi and Luo Ling giving it their all, the hopes of everyone in the stands. It was different from the Star Luo Empire. The expectations of the Auckland students weighed on him, but he felt a thrill. He had never felt this way in the Star Luo Empire. He tossed aside his plan to test his teammates. He didn't want to let down those hopeful faces. The odds were stacked against him. Even with his power, he couldn't win against 7 opponents of the same level. There was only one way, martial soul fusion. Zhu Qing, Dai Yao called out to Zhu Zhuqing, who was tangled up with Oslo. She understood instantly. Biting her lip, she turned, her body shimmering with a faint black light. Moving erratically, she sped toward Dai Yao. A strange surge of energy filled the arena. No, it's martial soul fusion. Tianheng knew what was happening. Stop them. Don't let them merge. Pushing himself, Tianheng unleashed his second skill, sending bolts of lightning toward Dai Yao and Zhu Zhuqing. The Imperial fighting team panicked and charged towards Dai Yao and Zhu Zhuqing. If they fused, they were in trouble. The spectators who had been leaving suddenly saw a glimmer of hope. They sat back down, eyes glued to the arena. Too late, Dai Yao said. Zhu Zhuqing was incredibly fast. Her explosive speed rivaled any agility-based master. In seconds, they were together. Dai Yao focused only on Zhu Zhuqing and opened his arms. They vanished, replaced by a massive white tiger. The tiger was semi-transparent, with wings and a golden marking on its forehead, radiating a divine aura. A crystal crown rested on its head, exuding power. Its eyes were different colors, one gold, the other clear. Dai Yao and Zhu Zhuqing's souls weren't just a white tiger and a spirit cat. They were the sacred white tiger and ghost master, far stronger than a regular nether white tiger. The mutations only strengthened the fusion. The arena fell silent, everyone staring at the terrifying tiger in shock. Even the VIPs were stunned. Ning Fengji recovered first. Principal Jackson, Auckland is fortunate. With these two, you've locked up a spot in the next round. Jackson finally snapped out of it and mumbled a few humble words. The Auckland players, eliminated and still fighting, were ecstatic. Dai Yuanyi struggled to his feet, laughing. He had that up his sleeve the whole time. He's gonna pay for that after the match. Feng Qianli, who had been barely holding on, stared at the white tiger in disbelief. His relentless spirit crumbled, and he collapsed, laughing in relief. With you two, there's hope. The Imperial fighting team was terrified. The nether white tiger's aura alone made them tremble. Tianheng paled, but he quickly recovered. Fusion takes a lot of energy. We just have to wait them out. The others snapped to attention. The Mo brothers took the lead, with Yu Feng and Oslo on the flanks. Tianheng stayed in the middle, shielding Dugu Yan and Yilenglin. The nether white tiger lifted its head, raised a massive paw. and slammed it down. A shockwave ripped through the arena. A crater appeared in the floor, and the walls exploded. 4 figures were sent flying. Shimamomo, Osluo, and Yufeng crashed into the walls, coughing blood. They were seriously injured. The smoke cleared. 4 people remained on Auckland's side: Feng Qianli, Luo Feng, Dai Yao, and Zhu Zhuqing. Dai Yao held Zhu Zhuqing, gasping. The fusion had drained them. Zhu Zhuqing was unconscious. Dai Yao had liquid energy. He was better off. The Imperial fighting team was in bad shape. Tianheng was bleeding, but he had managed to protect Dugu Yan and Yilanglan at the cost of his teammates. Dugu Yan snarled. "You dare do that to Tianheng? I'll kill you." Her soul rings flared, and she spat out a cloud of mist, spreading toward the Auckland team. Chapter 82: Poison Immunity. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Purple mist blanketed the arena. As it spread, the weeds around the fighting platform instantly turned to ash. Qin Ming burst out of the Huangdo team's lounge, panicked by the sight. "Yanzi, stop it. This is a competition. Call back the green scales and purple poison." Dugu Yan, turning away, retorted, "They hurt Tianheng like that. I'm not letting them off easy." Seeing Dugu Yan's rage, Qin Ming yelled towards the Auckland team, "Get down here, now. That poison is deadly. A whiff, and you'll be dissolving in seconds. This isn't a game anymore. Get off the field." Qin Ming's warning sent shivers through the audience. People in the front rows scrambled back, fear etched on their faces. The VIPs frowned. A simple match had escalated into a potential murder scene. Dai Yao's eyes narrowed. He knew the power of that venom. The Tang sect was famous for poisons as well as hidden weapons. Tang San used realgar wine to neutralize the green scale poison, but that took the white tiger's light wave to shatter the wine bottle, creating a mist, and Ma Hongjuan's phoenix fire to ignite it. He had the white tiger's light wave, but no one could replace the phoenix fire. What a shame. Guess I'll have to forfeit, Dai Yao thought. As much as he wanted to fight, the green scales and purple poison were too dangerous to risk his life. Seeing Feng Qianli hesitate, Dai Yao urged, "Captain, we need to leave now. That poison is too toxic." Looking defeated, Feng Qianli pulled Luo Feng from the platform. Dai Yao went to the edge, handed Zhu Zhuqing to the Oakland College medic and stared back at the poisonous mist. He felt a strange familiarity with it. Suddenly, it clicked. He remembered the poison from the assassin back in the Star Luo Empire, and it was exactly the same as the purple mist. That tea was poisoned with green scales and purple poison. He was shocked, then a laugh escaped him. "If it's green scales and purple poison, then I have nothing to fear." Ever since he was hit with the purple scale poison, he had developed a resistance thanks to the Chaos Green Lotus, making him immune. "Dai Yao, get down here. There's no reason to die for a match." Feng Qianli shouted anxiously. "Captain, I think I can handle this poison," Dai Yao replied. Feng Qianli paused, frustrated. "Dai Yao, even if you're immune, it's still 3 against 1. You can't win." Dai Yao just looked at him, silent. His gaze was firm and confident. He stared as if the 3 members of the Imperial fighting team were just ordinary people, helpless against him. Feng Qianli didn't know where this feeling came from, but he relented. "All right, but if things get out of hand, you forfeit." "Got it." Dai Yao nodded and turned towards Ziwu. The crowd gasped. Why is he going back? Does he want to die? Especially Qin Ming, who knew the power of the poison, and was terrified to see Dai Yao heading back to the arena. Principal Jackson was even more anxious, jumping to his feet to try and stop the match. "Principal Jackson, wait," Salas said calmly. "If Dai Yao is returning to the field, he must know what he's doing. And even if he gets hurt, the Spirit Hall will ensure his safety. In that case, I'll stay put." Principal Jackson sat back down, sweating as he watched Dai Yao approach Ziwu. Dai Yao was Oakland's hope, and he couldn't afford to lose him. Salas's confidence in Dai Yao piqued Ning Fengji's curiosity. Meanwhile, at the Royal Fighter team's side. "Leng Leng, heal Tianheng, quickly." Dugu Yan looked at the dying Yu Tianheng, her heart aching. Yi Lenglan nodded, and the 9-hearted begonia bloomed. The crowd gasped as Yu Tianheng, previously on the brink of death, was suddenly back on his feet, full of life. his wounds vanished. Everyone was stunned. Feng Qianli was filled with dread. He knew Tianheng's strength. Now that he was healed, how could a level 23 Dai Yao hope to stand a chance? Ning Fengji stared in disbelief. What a terrifying nine-hearted begonia, that even Salis looked at the black-veiled girl in surprise. Thanks, Yanzi, Leng Leng, Tianheng said after his recovery. No problem. Yi Lenglan still looked indifferent. Dugu Yan's tense expression melted into a charming smile. We're teammates, so of course we help each other out. Hearing the audience's commotion, she turned and saw Dai Yao on the stage, sneering. You think you can hurt Tianheng and just walk away? You're all going to pay. That she unleashed her soul power, and the purple mist drifted towards the Auckland team in the audience. Stop! Jackson, Qin Ming, and Tianheng yelled in unison, but it was too late. The mist spread off the stage, engulfing Feng Qianli and the others. Exhausted, Feng Qianli and the others were caught off guard and coughed in pain, writhing on the ground. Even the unconscious Zhu Zhuqing looked like she was in agony. Seeing Zhu Zhuqing's pain, Dai Yao snapped. His eyes burned with rage, bloodshot and ferocious. Dugu Yan, you're asking for it. His voice was cold and menacing, like it came from the depths of hell. Dai Yao had read the book, and he knew how ruthless Dugu Yan was. After Tianheng was injured, she unleashed poison to kill the Shrek's 7 monsters, but he never imagined that even after the Auckland team left the arena, Dugu Yan would still attack. You're overestimating yourself. You're the one who's asking for it. Dugu Yan spat. Tianheng sighed, stepping in front of Dugu Yan. This is our fault, but if you want to get to Yanzi, you'll have to go through me first. Dugu Yan's actions drew overwhelming condemnation. The whole arena was riled up. Dai Yao's heart was on fire as he watched Zhu Zhuqing suffer, but he knew that if he wanted to avenge the Auckland team, he had to take out Yi Lenglan first. Chapter 83 The Year Soul Ring Shocks the World. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 83 The 1,000-Year Soul Ring Shocks the World. Dai Yao took a deep breath. His eyes blazed, and his body surged with power, sending bits of the arena floor flying. Like lightning, he shot toward Huang Do and the others. To everyone watching, Dai Yao looked like a tragic, heroic figure taking on an impossible task. He saw his teammates injured, and it filled him with resentment and a desperate need to help. After rushing through the lingering poisonous fog, Dai Yao stood before Dugu Yan and the others, completely unharmed. What? How did my poison not work? Dugu Yan asked, stunned. Seeing Dai Yao's burning gaze, Tianheng stepped in front of Dugu Yan, a cold snarl on his face. His first soul ring flashed. First soul skill, Thunder Dragon Claw. That he didn't know why Dugu Yan's poison had failed against Dai Yao, but he wouldn't hold back now. Tianheng crackled with electric energy, a living embodiment of a thunder god. Dai Yao charged forward, seemingly fearless. If you want to die, I'll be happy to oblige. Tianheng spat out. Many in the audience flinched, bracing for the inevitable. Then, a soul-shaking tiger roar echoed through the arena. The roar came just after Baji Beng clashed with the Thunder Dragon Claw. Njin, an internal force technique, flowed through Tianheng's palm and into his body. But the resulting paralysis would only hold him for a moment. A moment was all Dai Yao needed. He activated his martial spirit. The instant his white tiger spirit emerged to face the blue lightning tyrant dragon spirit, it unleashed a domineering roar. The tiger's roar struck Tianheng like a physical blow, a massive weight on his chest. His breathing grew ragged, and even the energy flowing through his body seemed suppressed. His blue lightning tyrant dragon spirit trembled, quaking with fear. Dugu Yan fared even worse, stumbling backward in terror at the sound of the tiger. What kind of martial spirit is that? Tianheng gasped. The blue lightning tyrant dragon was known as one of the strongest beast spirits. It had always dominated opponents. But now, it was not only being suppressed, it was terrified. But instead of attacking again, Dai Yao suddenly staggered past him, flapping the wings on his back as he sprinted toward the rear of their formation, toward Yi Lenglan. Tianheng's face went white. He frantically channeled his soul power to pursue Dai Yao, but he was too late. the explosive power of his steps combined with the thrust of his wings had made him faster than even agility-type soul masters. There was no way Tianheng could catch him. Yi Lenglin squeezed her eyes shut. A powerful gust of wind whipped her hair and clothes around her, but the expected pain never came. Confused, she opened her eyes and found a fist inches from her face. Her gaze followed the arm to a young face twisted with anger. "Heal my teammates. I know what you can do." Dai Yao's voice was like ice. "Okay." Yi Lenglin stammered, her normally composed face blank with surprise. She knew that if Dai Yao hadn't held back, she would be writhing on the ground like the others. Quickly recovering, she jumped off the platform and hurried to the side of the poison team members. Ignoring the hostile stares, she apologized and used her soul skills. Soon, under the influence of the 9-heart begonia, the pain of the poison team member subsided. "I can only ease the pain. The poison is still in your systems. You'll need Sister Yen to fully detoxify you," Yi Lenglin explained. Seeing Zhu Zhuqing's face relax as her pain faded, Dai Yao sighed in relief. He turned to Tianheng and Dugu Yen, his voice cold. "Without Yi Lenglin, we can finally have a real fight." Tianheng felt a chill. He had already glimpsed the extent of Dai Yao's power, but the pride of the blue lightning tyrant dragon wouldn't allow him to back down, especially not against a weakened opponent. "Yanzi, step back. I want a fair fight." "But, your soul power," Dugu Yen said, concerned. The 9-heart begonia could heal injuries, but not restore lost soul power. "He's only at level 23. He just used a martial soul fusion skill, he can't have much left. He's in the same situation I am." Seeing the fire burning in Tianheng's eyes, Dugu Yen relented. "Okay, go get him." Dai Yao's bright blonde hair fell across his shoulders, his cold eyes narrowed with disdain. "You two better team up. Otherwise, this will be over too quickly and that won't be any fun." Soul power surged. 2 soul rings appeared around Dai Yao's feet. A gasp rippled through the audience as those who had turned away snapped their heads back to the arena, eyes wide, mouths agape. The gasp turned into a roar as every eye locked onto Dai Yao. 1,000-year soul ring. Someone whispered. Stunned, Feng Qianli, ignoring his illness, struggled to his feet to get a better look, much to Yi Lenglin's annoyance, but Feng Qianli didn't seem to notice. He saw only the purple light of the soul ring. So that's why he was so secretive and avoided talking about his martial spirit. Feng Qianli said, finally understanding. He chuckled. Yi Lenglin also turned back, her eyes widening at the sight of the purple ring. At the VIP table, 3 figures leaped to their feet, faces etched with shock. Jackson's grin nearly split his face. "Bishop, I never expected Dai Yao to have such a trump card. No wonder you weren't worried." Even Ning Fengji's composure had cracked. Even though Ferdinand had described Dai Yao's potential, Salas was still blown away to see the purple soul ring for himself, a miracle in the soul master world. Hearing Ning Fengji's exclamation, Salas forced himself to calm down. Even in the spirit hall, with all our geniuses, someone like Dai Yao is extraordinarily rare. Ning Fengji suppressed the excitement bubbling inside him. Summoning years of training, support-type soul masters were the most vulnerable on the battlefield. So, they craved strong, attacking teammates. It was common for women from the 7 treasure glazed tile school to marry powerful attacking soul masters. Someone as talented as Dai Yao was a match that would make even the most discerning woman excited. He glanced thoughtfully at Ning Rongrong, then back at the arena, a smile playing on his lips as something occurred to him. If Dai Yao joined the spirit hall, would they allow him to stay in the Heaven Do Empire? But no one was more shocked than Tianheng and Dugu Yen. Tianheng, who had always scoffed at the idea of genius, now had fear in his eyes. His Adam's apple bobbed, and his voice shook. "I can't believe you actually absorbed 1,000-year soul ring as your second." "I told you," Dai Yao said, his voice like a knife, his gaze shifting to Dugu Yen. "You will pay for what you've done." Chapter 84 An Overwhelming Victory. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Dai Yao's fists clenched, a murderous glint in his eyes. Yi Lengling's healing helped Zhu Zhuqing, but the green scales and lingering poison remained. Only Dugu Yen could fully cure her. His teammates were also badly poisoned. He couldn't waste time. He had to finish this fight fast. Purple light flared as Dai Yao's second soul ring activated, unleashing a surge of power. White light motes gathered before Dai Yao's mouth, swirling together. The raw energy made even the VIP guests gasp. Incredible aura, and from a great soul master. Ning Fengji exclaimed. Dai Yao locked his skill on Tianheng, his gaze chilling. Soul power surged, and the white energy coalesced into a blinding orb. Second soul skill, white tiger light wave. A tiger's roar ripped through the air as a white beam shot towards Tianheng, leaving a trail of screaming wind. Hit by the power of the 1,000-year soul skill, Tianheng staggered, his spirit shaken. Yet, the blue lightning tyrant dragon's pride kept him planted. Ignoring the pain in his meridians, he fired up his own soul power and unleashed his second skill, Lightning Storm. It had easily blocked Dai Yuan's sacrificing sword, an attack a regular soul master wouldn't dare face. After unleashing his second skill, Tianheng stood panting, drenched in sweat. Finally, he lifted his head and faced Dai Yao. Thousands of lightning bolts erupted, forming a jagged net in front of Tianheng. The two skills collided, the white tiger light wave slamming into the lightning net, forcing it into a tight funnel shape. Then, with a final burst, the light wave tore through the net, scattering lightning in every direction before crashing into Tianheng. The light wave slammed into the arena wall, sending up clouds of dust and showers of rubble. When the dust settled, Tianheng lay embedded in the wall, barely alive. No! Dugu Yen cried out, lunging forward, but the fight was already over. Dai Yao turned his murderous glare on her, and for the first time, the fearless Dugu Yen felt a tremor of fear. Even Tianheng was no match for him. Her greatest weapon, poison, was useless against Dai Yao. She couldn't stop him. Then she remembered her grandfather and the title Douluo. Most of the fear in his heart immediately disappeared. My grandfather is a title Douluo. How dare he hurt me? Dugu Yen thought. She desperately lit two soul rings, trying to slow Dai Yao's advance. A poisonous fog filled the air, but a white barrier appeared in front of Dai Yao, and another light wave cut through the purple haze. Knowing its power, Dugu Yen dodged the beam. The terrifying aura brushed past her as she glanced at the wall behind her, now shattered by the light wave. A cold sweat broke out on her forehead. He really would have killed me. Dugu Yen thought, horrified. Dai Yao moved quickly, tearing through Dugu Yan's defenses with devastating force. He grabbed her neck and lifted her off the ground. Murder burned in his eyes, his face a mask of fury. Dugu Yen gasped, unable to speak. Her green eyes pleaded for mercy as she clutched at Dai Yao's hand. Heal my teammates. Or die. Dai Yao's voice was ice. If Zhu Zhuqing suffered any lasting harm, he would kill Dugu Yen, even if she was the poisoned Douluo's granddaughter. He was now part of the Spirit Hall, and poisoned Douluo wouldn't dare to act under the Spirit Hall's protection. Besides, he had faced Dugu Bo's most powerful poison, and it wasn't that serious of a problem. Most importantly, Zhu Douluo Yueguan had an ongoing feud with Dugu Bo. He was prepared to face the consequences of killing Dugu Yen. Yanzi, just agree. Don't be stupid. You only have one life. Yi Lenglang's healing had revived the other Royal Do team members, and they watched Dugu Yen struggling in Dai Yao's grasp, anxiously pleading with her. Tianheng, still recovering, limped to the edge of the arena. He glanced at Dai Yao with a hint of fear, and then urged, promise him, Yanzi. Dai Yao's grip tightened, and pain shot through Dugu Yan's neck. Her breath hitched, her vision blurred, and the suffocating pain brought the reality of death crashing down. She croaked, I promise. Dai Yao released her, and Dugu Yen crumpled to the ground, gasping for air. The brush with death left her trembling. She looked up at Dai Yao's cold stare and felt a wave of primal fear. Heal them, Dai Yao ordered. Dugu Yen could only nod. A roar of cheers erupted from the audience as the Auckland students celebrated wildly. Their team, on the verge of defeat, had somehow survived. Emotions that had been suppressed for so long were finally released. Remembering the haughty attitude of the royal fighters, the Auckland students felt as good as eating ice cream in the summer. The Tiendo Royal Academy students were ashen-faced, silent. They hadn't expected their invincible team to fall in the first match. They remembered their boasts and hurried out of Auckland College in shame. students from other colleges stared wide-eyed, unable to believe what they had witnessed. The world's top beast spirit, the blue lightning tyrant dragon, had been defeated head-on. There was also the nine-hearted begonia, which turns decay into magical powers, and the extremely dangerous jade scale snake king. The masters of those powerful spirits had all fallen to one person. Unbelievable, not even the spirit hall could find such a powerful peer. They stared at the figure in the arena, etching the moment into their memories. They had come to scout the Royal Do team, but they had discovered a star. After memorizing his name and skills, they rushed back to their academies to report. Soon, this man's name would be known throughout the Tiando Empire. The Auckland students gazed at Dai Yao with fervent admiration. If Principal Jackson hadn't intervened, they would have stormed the arena and hoisted him on their shoulders. They knew that the victory belonged solely to Dai Yao. Without him, the Auckland team would have been crushed. Some students worried, this genius can't leave Auckland College. The administration must keep him here, Chapter 85 Growth Through Failure. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 85, Learning from Loss. Dugu Yen reached out and touched Zhu Zhuqing's skin. The green discoloration on Zhu Zhuqing's body faded, the toxins coalescing into a tiny green bead right where Dugu Yen's finger pressed. With a flick of her nail, she extracted the bead. Seeing color return to Zhu Zhuqing's face as she groggily woke, Dai Yao was overjoyed, rushing to her side to help her sit up. Brother Yao? Zhu Zhuqing mumbled, still disoriented. After a moment, she asked, what happened to the match? We won, of course, Dai Yao said with a smile. Dugu Yen watched Zhu Zhuqing with curiosity, a strange light in her eyes. He was so cold during the match. I never expected he had such a soft side. Judging by how worried he looked just now, this girl must be really important to him. Seeing Dugu Yen still hanging around, Dai Yao's anger flared. So many of his teammates were suffering from her poison, and she just stood there like nothing was wrong. What are you still doing here? My teammates are still poisoned. Go give them the antidote. He snapped. Dugu Yen blinked, startled. Seeing the fury in Dai Yao's eyes, she shrank back. Okay, she stammered. She quickly moved out of Dai Yao's sight to begin treating the rest of the Oakland team. Zhu Zhuqing slowly recovered. Lying in Dai Yao's arms, with so many eyes on them, made her uncomfortable, so she moved away to rest by herself. As Dai Yao turned to check on his teammates, the Royal Knights team approached. Congratulations, you won, Yu Tianheng said, his voice tight. Dai Yao hated Dugu Yan's reckless use of her powers, but he didn't hold a grudge against the rest of the Royal Knights. Except Yufeng, he smiled. You just didn't know my full strength. If we fought again now that you've seen what I can do, the outcome might be different. Yu Tianheng waved his hand. We lost. No need to sugarcoat it. Your second soul ring is 1,000 years old. I'm embarrassed. If I get another chance, I'll give you a real fight. Sensing Yu Tianheng's unwavering fighting spirit, Dai Yao admired him. If you want a rematch, I'll be there, he said, smiling. Even with his spirit suppressed and defeated, Yu Tianheng hadn't lost his drive. He truly was worthy of being the pride of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan. Even if his spirit wasn't the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon, Dai Yao was sure that he would still be the best of the best. Yu Tianheng nodded. Actually, we wanted to ask you something else. What is it? We didn't lose to the Oakland team. We lost to you. So, we'd like to invite you to join the Tiando Royal Academy. Yu Tianheng made the offer, and the other 5 members of the team looked at Dai Yao eagerly, except for Dugu Yen, who was still administering antidotes. Dai Yao shook his head, turning them down flat. Sorry, I'm not interested in joining Tiando Royal Academy. But don't you see? Staying at Oakland Academy is a waste of your talent. Only Tiando Royal Academy can help you reach your full potential, Qin Ming blurted out. Dai Yao couldn't help but laugh. Says you, Qin Ming. Aren't you wasting your talent at Shrek? You didn't have Yu Shaojiang back then and had to rely on a few professors from Flanders. I'm afraid Oakland College is better than that. Seeing Dai Yao surrounded by the Royal Knights team, Feng Qianli and the rest of the Oakland team, finished with the antidote, pushed their way through the Royal Knights and stood in front of Dai Yao. Feng Qianli said sternly to the Royal Knights team, Dai Yao is one of ours. If you want to poach him, you have to go through us first. Yu Tianheng glanced at Feng Qianli and the others dismissively, and scoffed. Look at these guys. With teammates like that, you'll never win the Continental Soul Master competition. Dai Yao was already planning on how to improve his teammates' skills. The Oakland team might be weak, but they weren't as hopeless as Yu Tianheng made them out to be. If they addressed their shortcomings, they could even take on the Five Elements Academy. Combined with him and Zhu Zhuqing, they could be a finals-worthy team, and he already had plans for reinforcements. Feng Qianli and the others were on edge. Seeing the commotion, more Oakland students gathered around. Learning what was happening, they displayed open hostility toward the Royal Knights. Dai Yao said, I've made up my mind to stay with Oakland. There's nothing more to discuss. Please leave. Hearing Dai Yao's decision, Qin Ming sighed. Except for Yu Feng, who looked a little pleased, the rest of the Royal Knights seemed disappointed. They had a strong lineup already, but adding Dai Yao and Zhu Zhuqing would have made it perfect. Unfortunately, Dai Yao had refused, and he and Zhu Zhuqing were young enough to compete in the next Continental Soul Master competition. Since Dai Yao wasn't interested, the Royal Knights, as the losers, had no reason to stay and quickly left, led by Qin Ming. Dugu, trailing behind, suddenly stopped, turned, and asked Dai Yao, why doesn't my poison work on you? Although he was still annoyed with Dugu, considering that no one from Oakland had been seriously hurt, he didn't mind clearing up her confusion. Because I'm immune to your poison. Dugu flinched, biting her lip. After a moment, she slowly turned and followed the rest of the Royal Knights. What's wrong? You look troubled, Yanzi, Qin Ming asked, concerned. No, it's nothing, Dugu replied, snapping out of her thoughts. Qin Ming looked at the dejected group and clapped his hands. When he had everyone's attention, he said, this loss is actually a good thing for you all. Everyone looked surprised. Yu Tianheng seemed to understand what Qin Ming was getting at. Qin Ming said calmly, you're all talented. You've had it easy. You've faced setbacks, sure, but none that really challenged you. So today's defeat is a blessing in disguise. Losing isn't scary. What's scary is not learning from it. I think after this match, you should understand that. You'll be stronger the next time you face an opponent like this. Oakland beat you and woke you up. He paused and glanced at the entire Royal Knights team. I'm here to give you a message, learn from loss. Learn from loss. The members of the Royal Knights repeated the phrase, their eyes gradually brightening with newfound understanding. Chapter 86 Dugu and Yu Tianheng. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 86, Dugu and Yu Tianheng, **** Tiando Royal Academy, ****. In a lounge, ****. After Qin Ming's pep talk, the Royal Dou team members were feeling a little better about their loss. Osluo and Yufeng were sprawled on the sofa, while the Shi brothers, Shi Mo and Shi, were meditating in a corner. Yi gave a curt nod and left the lounge. Tianheng, can you come outside for a sec? I need to talk to you. Dugu bit her lip, her green eyes sparkling. She hesitated, then finally mustered the courage to speak to Yu Tianheng, who was resting. Huh? Yu Tianheng looked surprised for a moment, then said, sure. He got up and followed Dugu out of the lounge. As soon as they left, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The gloom lifted, and the remaining four exchanged knowing glances. Yufeng winked and said to Oslo, the captain may be down about the competition, but love is in the air. Looks like Yanzi's about to make her move. Ever since they joined the Tiando royal team, it was obvious to everyone that Dugu had a thing for Yu Tianheng, but he seemed oblivious, ignoring her advances. Yu Tianheng was the heir of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan, and Dugu was the granddaughter of Poison Douluo. They were a perfect match, and everyone was rooting for them to get together. Oslo raised an eyebrow, noticing that the Shi brothers were also watching the door. Curious, he teased, well, looks like those two aren't as innocent as they seem. that the Shi brothers just grinned sheepishly. Dugu Yan led Yu Tianheng away, stopping by a rock garden pond. Seeing Dugu Yan's hesitation, Yu Tianheng spoke first. Yanzi, this loss isn't your fault. Dai Yao was just too strong. No, that's not what I wanted to talk about, Dugu Yan said, waving her hand. What is it then? How long have we been at Tiando Royal Academy? Dugu Yan asked, looking at the fish in the pond. A while now, Yu Tianheng replied, thinking. Yeah, a pretty good while, Dugu Yan said, biting her lip and clasping her hands tightly. What are you trying to say? Yu Tianheng asked, frowning. Dugu Yan smiled sadly, paused for a long moment, and finally said, after all this time, can't you tell how I feel about you? Of course, I know, Yu Tianheng replied, then fell silent. Dugu Yan turned back, her green hair swaying, a hopeful look on her face. If you know how I feel, why do you always pretend you don't? Yu Tianheng remained silent, his Adam's apple bobbing. He avoided her gaze. Seeing his reaction, Dugu Yan's expression slowly changed. Her smile faded, and the corners of her mouth straightened. They both fell silent, the air thick with unspoken words. She smiled bitterly and said, I guess you know about my condition. You're a member of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan. How could you not know why there are so few of us from the blue scale snake lineage? That the green scale snake is highly venomous. Its poison is lethal, but it also harms the snake itself. The venom is hidden in the Soul Master's body. When it builds up, it explodes, poisoning the Soul Master to death. That's why people from the green scale snake lineage often die young. Their lifespan is much shorter than other Soul Masters. Dugu Yan's father's soul power grew too slowly to stop the toxins, and he died when she was just a child. This was a secret within the blue scale lineage, but the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex clan had been around for centuries and knew everything. Ever since Dugu Yan's father died, they had suspected the reason. In the original novel, Poison Douluo had his toxins removed by Tang San, which extended his life. Dugu Yan had been exposed to toxins in her mother's womb and was destined to die even younger than other Soul Masters. For Yu Tianheng to be with Dugu Yan meant he would be a widower young, something the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex clan would never allow. How could the future leader of the clan have a wife who was doomed to die young? So what if she was Poison Douluo's granddaughter? The Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex clan didn't need a marriage of convenience. Seeing that Yu Tianheng didn't respond, Dugu Yan steeled herself and said, Look at me. Yu Tianheng slowly met her gaze. When he looked into those green eyes, his heart skipped a beat. Her eyes were like a still lake, green and deep, her long lashes casting shadows. She seemed less confident and energetic than usual. She looked vulnerable, and it broke his heart. Tell me the truth, Dugu Yan said, gritting her teeth. Have you had feelings for me since we joined the royal fighting team? Yu Tianheng took a step back, wanting to say something but unable to. He thought of his family's expectations, his father's warnings, and his third uncle Yu Shaojiang's fate. He closed his mouth, saying nothing. He definitely had feelings for Dugu Yan, but his family had forbidden him from pursuing a relationship with her. He had recently returned to his family and argued with his father about why he couldn't be with Dugu Yan. He had said he was willing to endure the pain of becoming a widower. His father didn't outright reject him, but his disapproval was clear. He faced pressure from the elders and from all sides. It felt like the ocean, suffocating him and filling him with despair, but he wouldn't give up. He was a Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus. He never backed down in a fight, and he wouldn't back down now. He would overcome the obstacles and be with Dugu Yan, but until he could resolve the current situation, he wouldn't say anything to her. That's who he was. A man from the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus clan. Seeing his reaction, Dugu Yan laughed sadly, tears streaming down her face. She turned away, covering her face so he wouldn't see her cry. Her voice choked, I know. Then she ran away. Seeing her sadness, Yu Tianheng's heart ached. His eyes hardened and he clenched his fists. Yanzi, wait for me. If we were together now, it would only hurt you. When I convince my family, I'll come for you. Asterisk in the lounge, asterisk. Seeing Yu Tianheng return alone, looking dejected, everyone exchanged nervous glances. Finally, Yu Feng cautiously stepped forward and asked softly, Boss, are you okay? Tianheng exhaled, trying to shake off the tension. He forced a smile and said, "I'm fine." You don't look fine at all. Yu Feng thought, but didn't press the issue. An hour later, the lounge was empty, and Yu Tianheng stood up. His eyes were burning with determination. He was going back to his family. To remove all the obstacles, once and for all. Chapter 87 The True Nature of the Witch One. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Edited content. Chapter 87, The Real Witch. Auckland College. Even after the Royal Doe Spirit team left, the students were still buzzing, their excitement reaching a fever pitch. Dai Yao was swarmed, and it took Feng Qianli and the others a major effort to get him back to the lounge. Feng Qianli finally managed to close the door, wiping his brow, and said, "Finally. Those students were crazy. Getting back here was harder than the fight." Dai Yao practically melted onto the sofa the moment he saw it, sprawling out like a ragdoll. Dai Yuan, he said, "After that match, I bet a ton of girls are secretly crushing on you. I'm so jealous, I can barely stand it." Before he could finish, a sudden chill washed over him, making him shiver. He quickly stood up, seeing Zhu Zhuqing's icy stare. Dai Yao chuckled, "Watch what you say." Everyone settled down to discuss the match, going over what went well and what didn't. Feng Qianli clapped Dai Yao on the back. "Your performance today blew everyone away. We only won because of you and Zhu Zhuqing. But don't worry," Feng Qianli added. "We won't let you down." The others nodded, their faces serious. Even the usually flippant Dai Yuan looked focused. Seeing their determination, Dai Yao smiled. "Now that I'm here, I'm not underestimating anyone, but our goal is to make it to the playoffs, maybe even the finals. Right now, our team needs some work." The Auckland team members' expressions shifted. Feng Qianli remained composed, while Dai Yuan still seemed indifferent. Luo Feng and Dugu looked down, a bit dejected. They hadn't played particularly well in the match, especially Douluo, who was taken out almost immediately by Yu Feng, putting the team at a disadvantage. Dai Yao's words might have stung, but they were true. A team couldn't always rely on others to cover their weaknesses. Initially, no one wanted to join the team because they were facing the Imperial team, but now, the Auckland team had won and gained two powerhouses in Dai Yao and Zhu Zhuqing. No one wanted to bail. The Spirit Master competition was a highlight of every student's time, filled with sweat, all-out effort, teamwork, and glory. Even losing would be a memorable experience. With Dai Yao's arrival, the odds of doing well in the competition had shot up. Every team member would become a star of the Auckland team. That's why no one wanted to leave. The noise outside the door suddenly died down, followed by a knock. Sensing something was up, they opened the door to find 4 people standing there, making their eyes widen. It was Principal Jackson, Salas, a refined-looking man, and a young girl in a blue dress. Dai Yao immediately recognized the man, Ning Fengji, leader of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. The girl next to him had to be Ning Rongrong. They'd come to see Dai Yao. After Principal Jackson introduced them, the Auckland team members could barely contain their excitement. The head of one of the top sects in the world, plus the Platinum Bishop of the Spirit Hall, were standing right in front of them. They tried to stay calm and act normal. Salas, who had known Dai Yao for a while, was happy to see him doing well. He clapped Dai Yao on the shoulder in encouragement, then stepped aside. Ning Fengji sighed. Salas wasn't going to give him a chance to talk to Dai Yao alone. Salas smirked. He knew what Ning Fengji was thinking. Support sects always tried to recruit talent, especially talented young people. The promise of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile Spirit support could easily sway people to join their sect. Ning Fengji, with his charming personality and gracious demeanor, was always a thorn in the Spirit Hall's side. Now that a genius like Dai Yao had appeared, there was no way Ning Fengji would stand by. Salas was worried Dai Yao would impulsively join the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. The Spirit Hall had gone through too much to get Dai Yao away from the Star Luo Empire. He wouldn't let Ning Fengji steal their prize now. With Salas watching him like a hawk, Ning Fengji sighed, offered a few words of encouragement, and left with Salas. However, Ning Rongrong stayed behind. After the 2 bigwigs left, the atmosphere in the lounge instantly relaxed. Everyone had been holding their breath, afraid of embarrassing themselves in front of them. "Wow, I can finally breathe," As soon as Ning Fengji and Salas were gone, Dai Yuani flopped back onto the sofa. Those two were so imposing. I was afraid to breathe when they came in, especially sect leader Ning. He's so handsome and graceful, said Luo Ling, the support spirit master, happily patting her chest. Feng Qianli suddenly noticed that the girl who had come with Ning Fengji was still there. Hey, quiet down. We have company. Everyone looked to see a slender girl standing in the doorway. Her light blue dress was elegant and beautiful, her black hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall, her skin was smooth, her face was delicate, and her figure was perfect. Most striking was her graceful, refined manner and gentle smile that warmed everyone around her. Everyone had been focused on Ning Fengji and Salas, and now they realized just how gorgeous the girl was. The boys stared, practically mesmerized. Hey there, what can I do for you? Seeing Ning Rongrong, Dai Yuani sprang up from the sofa and went to her side. He gave her his most charming smile and spoke in a gentle tone. I'm looking for Dai Yao, Ning Rongrong replied with a smile. Hearing that someone else was looking for Dai Yao, Dai Yuani deflated like a punctured balloon and said to Dai Yao, looking dejected, someone else wants you. People had been coming to see Dai Yao all day long. They were getting used to it. Although sect leader Ning and Bishop Salas had praised everyone, they all knew they'd really come for Dai Yao. Dai Yao started to get up, but suddenly felt a resistance on his arm. He looked down to see Zhu Zhuqing gripping his arm tightly, looking at Ning Rongrong with narrowed eyes. Realizing Dai Yao was about to leave, Zhu Zhuqing quickly let go. Embarrassed, Ning Rongrong wasn't just high status, she was also incredibly beautiful, and for the first time, Zhu Zhuqing felt threatened by another girl. Seeing Dai Yao smile and nod to her, she calmed down a bit. Ning Rongrong might have looked soft and delicate, but Dai Yao knew her true nature. In the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile School, she was a mischievous little witch who feared nothing. With her status, talent, and the backing of Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo, she definitely had reason to be proud. In the original story, if she hadn't come to Shrek Academy and had her personality transformed, who knows how spoiled Ning Rongrong would have been by the two-title Douluo. Chapter 88 The True Nature of the Witch 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The two of them walked until they reached a secluded spot. Ning Rongrong turned, a warm smile on her face, and, with her hands behind her back, asked, Dai Yao, you know about the Seven Treasures Glazed sect, right? Of course, Dai Yao replied with a nod. Ning Rongrong started pacing. We're the top support sect in the world. Naturally, a lot of soul masters want in. My father's tied up with some urgent business right now. He specifically asked me to invite you to join. She looked at Dai Yao expectantly. Ning Fengji had anticipated Sarasa's constant surveillance, so he delegated the recruitment of Dai Yao to Ning Rongrong. No one turns down the Seven Treasures Glazed sect. Ning Rongrong had witnessed the scramble firsthand. Every time they recruited, soul masters would practically kill to get in. She assumed that a simple invitation would have Dai Yao jumping for joy, just like everyone else. Sorry, but I'll have to pass. I'm not looking to join a sect. Dai Yao shook his head. Ning Rongrong was floored. She hadn't expected the rejection, and a flicker of anger crossed her face. But remembering Dai Yao's talent and Ning Fengji's instructions, she forced a sweet smile. Maybe you don't understand what joining us really means. If you're strong enough, you'll have more wealth than you can imagine, and you'll get constant support from the Seven Treasures Glazed Soul Masters. And if you happen to fall for a girl from our sect, you can even marry her. Being the wife of a Seven Treasures Glazed Martial Soul Master. That's the dream of every attack-type Soul Master. Wouldn't you want that? Ning Rongrong said, trying to sound seductive. Looking at her, Dai Yao was surprised by this side of Ning Rongrong. In the original story, she came across as willful and mischievous. Now, her serious pitch left him a little confused. Then it clicked. Ning Rongrong was Ning Fengji's daughter. She'd been raised in a noble household. Recruiting subordinates was a normal thing for nobles. The invitation was definitely tempting. The backing of the world's best support martial soul and the wealth of the Seven Treasures Glazed sect were hard to dismiss, but he'd left the Star Luo Empire with the help of the Spirit Hall. Joining the Seven Treasures Glazed sect after that would be a slap in the face. He couldn't be that ungrateful. Dai Yao rubbed his chin, thought for a moment, and then smiled. Sorry, I can't join. Ning Rongrong's brow furrowed, the softness in her eyes vanished, and her rising anger broke through her practiced composure. With one hand on her hip and the other pointed at Dai Yao, she raised her voice and said in a condescending tone, Dai Yao, you're turning down my invitation again. Are you saying you don't take our 7 treasures glazed sect seriously? Let me tell you, I'm not someone you can mess with. You don't know what's good for you. That she'd promised Ning Fengji she'd bring Dai Yao back to the 7 treasure glazed sect. She'd thought it would be easy, like those other soul masters begging for a chance to join, just a hint of interest from them would send people into a frenzy. She hadn't expected Dai Yao to be so uninterested. Seeing Ning Rongrong's chest heaving with anger, Dai Yao just rolled his eyes. Arguing with her would only make things worse. He turned to leave. Ning Rongrong's threats meant nothing to Dai Yao. He wasn't going to be punished for not joining. Stop right there. Who said you could leave? Seeing Dai Yao walk away, Ning Rongrong's anger boiled over. Excuse me, was there something else? Dai Yao stopped and turned back. Hearing that, Ning Rongrong was speechless with rage. She slowly clenched her fists and frowned. Looking at Dai Yao's calm and indifferent expression, she could no longer contain her anger. She marched forward and started raining blows on him with her tiny fists. How dare you refuse me? How dare you refuse? No one ever refuses the 7 treasures glazed sect. There was a hint of tears in her voice. Ning Rongrong's punches felt like a massage to Dai Yao. He frowned, his eyes turning cold, and quickly grabbed her hands. The delicate touch made him pause for a moment. They were definitely pampered hands. He collected himself and squeezed tightly. He just wanted to stop the annoying Ning Rongrong, not take advantage of her, but his grip was a little rough. He considered himself a jerk, but he had no sympathy for girls who didn't belong to him. Ning Rongrong cried out in pain and struggled, but the more she struggled, the tighter Dai Yao's grip became. Realizing this, she slowly stopped fighting. Let go! She yelled, her light blue eyes filled with anger. Seeing that she had finally calmed down and stopped struggling, Dai Yao released her hands. Ning Rongrong frowned, rubbing her sore wrists. How dare you treat me like this? When I tell Grandpa Jian and Grandpa Gu, you're dead. Dai Yao gave Ning Rongrong a cold look, anger rising within him. An invitation means you can say no. Why was she getting so angry? And Ning Rongrong's condescending tone was infuriating. He slowly approached her. As an attack-type soul master, he was much taller than her. The cold aura emanating from him made Ning Rongrong pale, and she felt a flicker of fear. She took a step back. What are you going to do? I'm the daughter of the Qibao glazed sect's leader. If you dare lay a hand on me, do you have a death wish? Her voice trembled. Seeing Ning Rongrong cornered, Dai Yao just wanted to scare her. He suppressed his anger and said, I'm invited. What's the problem if I turn it down? Is everyone who says no going to die? Is the 7 treasures glazed sect that overbearing? Ning Rongrong decided to call his bluff. She didn't believe Dai Yao would actually attack her. She put her hands on her hips, puffed out her chest, and stood up to him. What's wrong with that? You're just a commoner soul master. How dare you reject our 7 treasure glazed sect? Dai Yao was a commoner now. He'd left the Star Luo Empire and the White Tiger clan behind. Hearing that, Dai Yao was even more disgusted by Ning Rongrong. Her character had been awful at first in the books, but she got better after joining Shrek Academy. He hadn't expected her to be this bad. He stared at Ning Rongrong without a word. After a moment, he scoffed and, feeling that Ning Rongrong was a lost cause, turned and walked away. As soon as Dai Yao left, Ning Rongrong collapsed to the ground, her mind blank. Dai Yao's disgusted look was burned into her mind. No one had ever looked at her like that. She was the princess of the Qibao glazed sect, the pride of heaven, and the apple of Ning Fengji's eye. Everyone around her doted on her. But today, those disgusted looks made her question herself. Did I really do something wrong? Ning Rongrong stared blankly at the scenery around her. Chapter 89 Dugu. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Edited content. Dai Yao dismissed the squabble with Ning Rongrong as a minor blip, even though he shrugged off her behavior, her threat lingered in the back of his mind. Man, if she runs to Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo with this, they might actually come after me, knowing them. Dai Yao slumped on the sofa, feeling helpless. But hey, I didn't actually do anything. They can't just kill me for that, right? That thought brought him some comfort. After the tournament, life settled back into a routine, and Dai Yao became a celebrity around Oakland College. He also managed to snag a waterfall spot to train. He was used to the pressure of waterfalls, and having this training area was a big plus. The guy who had it before didn't want to give it up, but when he found out it was Dai Yao, he did a complete 180 and handed it right over. Not only was it free, but the guy practically begged him to take it. Dai Yao finally gave in, but only after some heavy convincing that he deserved the reward. This time, though, there wasn't a cave behind the waterfall. Zhu Zhuqing's special training spot was somewhere else. With his new training ground secured, Dai Yao went back to his grind: eat, study, train, sleep. He also sparred with the Oakland team now and then. Life was pretty much the same as at Star Luo Royal Academy, but with a few key differences. For one, he was now a magnet for attention wherever he went on campus. Students, especially the girls, would get all excited when they saw him. Zhu Zhuqing was always close by. Back at Star Luo, everyone looked down on him, even refused to say his name. Now, he was the most popular guy at Oakland, hands down. That night, under the waterfall, Dai Yao took a deep breath, stood up, and leaped out. He clenched his fists, feeling the soul power coursing through his veins. Nice, he thought, at this rate, I'll break through level 23 and hit level 24 in just over a week. His brow furrowed. He remembered struggling in his duel with Dai Yaming, forced to rely on soul skills because he lacked practical experience. He made a mental note. No way. I couldn't really work on my fighting skills back in Star Luo because of the environment. Now that I'm in Tianheng, I've got to make it a priority. For a soul master, a soul fighting arena is the best place to improve fighting skills. Dai Yao looked up. Not far off, a brightly lit building towered in the distance, the Tianheng Soul Fighting Arena. It was one of the biggest in the Tianheng Empire, attracting soul masters from everywhere. And at Dai Yao's level, there was no age limit. Plenty of experienced level 20 soul masters with unique tricks of their own hung around there. Dai Yao clenched his fists, eager to test himself against them, but he was already near the top of the Great Soul Master ladder, and regular soul masters were no match for him. Plus, his second soul ring was a 1,000-year ring, which made him stand out too much. So, he decided to fight without using soul skills, relying instead on his own abilities against other great soul masters. Of course, focusing on fighting skills would naturally slow down his soul power progression. Everything was quiet. The evening breeze rustled through the trees, and crickets chirped in the forest. Dai Yao felt relaxed, enjoying the wind even though he was still wet. Suddenly, the hairs on his body stood on end. Alarm bells went off in his head. His expression hardened. He got into a fighting stance, and shouted, "Who's there?" "Oh. Not bad. Interesting that you sensed me." The voice was raspy, laced with surprise, and seemed to come from everywhere at once, rustling the leaves. Dai Yao jumped. The voice sent a jolt through him, his heart pounding, and sweat breaking out on his forehead. This is way beyond anyone I've ever faced. Not even Bishop Ferdinand had this kind of presence. Could this be a titled Douluo? His pupils shrank, and his heart skipped a beat. Damn it, could it be Sword Douluo or Bone Douluo coming to get me for what happened with Ning Rongrong? Dai Yao thought grimly. Then, a sharp pain shot through his neck, his mind went blank, his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed to the ground. While later, Zhu Zhuqing finished her training and went back to Dai Yao's waterfall. Something felt off when she didn't see anyone there. She checked the house, but it was empty too, and she started to panic. Don't freak out, maybe something just came up. That she tried to reassure herself. Time dragged on, the night slowly passed, and when dawn broke, Dai Yao still hadn't returned. Zhu Zhuqing hadn't slept all night. Her lips trembled, her eyes were bloodshot, and she knew something had happened to Dai Yao. In the darkness, Dai Yao slowly regained consciousness. He didn't dare move. He felt a coldness rising from the ground, and the air smelled fishy. He realized this was definitely not Oakland College. He circulated soul power through his body, regulated his breathing, controlled his heart rate, kept his eyes closed, and focused all his energy on listening. He heard a soft and a raspy voice echoed around him. This is a cave, Dai Yao realized immediately. No need to play possum now that you're awake. You're a smart kid, even if you're still young. His cover blown, Dai Yao stopped pretending. He opened his eyes and looked around for the source of the voice. Moonlight streamed in from the cave entrance, silhouetting a figure. As his eyes adjusted, Dai Yao started to make out the details. The figure wore dark green clothes and had pale hair that reached his waist. The moonlight cast an eerie glow on his back. "Senior, what's the meaning of this?" Dai Yao didn't know who this was, so he spoke cautiously. The figure at the entrance turned around, revealing his face. Dai Yao gasped. The man had a long, thin face and dark green eyes like a venomous snake, glowing faintly in the dim light. Dai Yao was shocked. He knew immediately who this was, Dugu Yan's grandfather, Jade Serpent Douluo Dugu. Dugu noticed Dai Yao's reaction. He tilted his head, glanced at him, and rasped, "You know who I am?" "Jade Serpent Douluo." "Who doesn't?" Dai Yao was on edge. Who wouldn't be afraid when facing a titled Douluo? He wiped the sweat from his forehead, stood up, and bowed his hands in respect. He didn't know why Dugu had brought him here, but being kidnapped in the middle of the night couldn't be good. He calmed himself, secretly channeled his soul power, and prepared to use his second martial soul. If Dugu really meant to harm him, it might be his only chance. He knew that with his level 20 soul power, he had almost no hope against a titled Douluo, but he had to try. Dugu saw Dai Yao's subtle movements but didn't seem to care. His green eyes glinted as he asked, "I heard you're immune to my granddaughter's poison." Hearing those words, Dai Yao's heart sank. He looked up at Dugu's face, his mind racing. Remembering the plot from the original story, he suddenly understood why Dugu had brought him here. Chapter 94. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 90. Persecution. Dugu, known as Poison Douluo, was the master of poison in the land. Ironically, the venom of his jade scale snake martial spirit was as dangerous to him as it was to others. Only the unique environment of the ice and fire yin-yang well prevented the poison from killing him outright. Even so, he lived with constant, agonizing pain from the toxins ravaging his body. So, when Dai Yao showed an immunity to the venom, it immediately grabbed Dugu's attention. If he could unlock the secret to that immunity, he might finally break the curse of his martial spirit and extend his lifespan. But Dai Yao's immunity came from his second martial spirit, the Chaos Azure Lotus, a secret he couldn't reveal. His incredible talent for wielding twin martial spirits would make Dugu see him as a threat to the point of preemptively killing him. Therefore, revealing his martial soul would be a way of killing himself. Without revealing the Chaos Azure Lotus, he couldn't detoxify Dugu, but revealing his twin martial souls was suicide. A true catch. 22. As the reality of his situation sunk in, Dai Yao's pupils constricted, his heart hammered against his ribs, and a wave of despair washed over him. Dugu was no saint. As Poison Douluo, he had countless deaths on his conscience. In the original story, Tang San showed off his spirit bone, and Dugu was ready to kill him and take it for himself. Only Tang San's own poison skills and the threat of the Golden Iron Triangle kept him alive. While they eventually became allies, Dugu was still a ruthless man at heart. One wrong move, and Dai Yao was dead. His only hope now was Zhu Zhuqing, or that the academy would notice his absence and send someone to find him. He needed to buy time. The longer he could stall, the better his chances of survival. Taking a deep breath to steady himself, he met Dugu's cold, reptilian gaze and said, trying to sound steady, "Yes, I am immune to the venom of the jade scale snake." A flicker of interest sparked in Dugu's eyes. He clasped his hands behind his back and slowly closed the distance between them. Even without activating his martial spirit, the sheer pressure of his presence made it hard for Dai Yao to breathe. His voice was hoarse as he asked, "How did you become immune to the venom of the jade scale snake?" Dai Yao's heart leaped into his throat. This was it, the question that threatened to expose his second martial spirit. He couldn't tell the truth, but he had already prepared a lie and feigned calmness. "I'm sorry, I can't comment." A faint smile played on Dugubo's lips. "You need to think this through, kid. If you don't tell me, you won't leave here alive. No one can save you." The temperature in the air seemed to plummet. Even as an offensive-type soul master, Dai Yao felt the biting cold, a faint tingling on his exposed skin, time to amp it up, Dai Yao thought. "I'll tell you. I'll tell you." Dai Yao's eyes widened. He scrambled back on the ground, his legs kicking out, doing his best to look terrified. The prospect of death was genuinely frightening. Although he was faking it, his emotions bled through, making his performance all the more convincing. Seeing the hint of triumph in Dugubo's eyes, Dai Yao lowered his head to hide his expression and mumbled. "I gained immunity to the venom of the jade scale snake after consuming a rare treasure." "Nonsense," Dugubo's brow furrowed. In a flash, he closed the 10-meter gap and grabbed Dai Yao by the neck, lifting him off the ground. "I've scoured the entire continent. There's no such treasure. How dare you lie to me?" Dai Yao struggled, his throat burning. He was helpless against Dugubo. One moment, the man was a dozen feet away, and the next, he was choking, clawing at Dugubo's arm. Dai Yao gasped for air, managing to choke out. "The world's a big place. You can't know everything." Dugubo paused, loosening his grip slightly. "Describe this treasure. If you can't give me a convincing story, you won't see another sunrise." Gasping for breath, Dai Yao fell to the ground, sucking in air. He kept his eyes downcast, careful to show the proper respect. "Your Majesty, it was a spirit herb." Dugubo nodded, a glimmer of interest in his eyes. "A spirit herb, that's plausible." Any other answer would have meant instant death. Dai Yao continued. "It was an azure lotus, as green as jade, radiating power. I ate it and got poisoned, but the toxins didn't affect me. It wasn't until I fought the royal fighting team a few days ago that I realized it was the jade scale snake venom. Do you have any more of this azure lotus?" Although Dugubo's expression remained neutral, Dai Yao could hear a hint of desperation in his voice. "No, just that one." Dugubo stroked his beard, pacing back and forth, his gaze shifting between cold calculation and sharp intensity. Suddenly, he stopped, his face twisting in fury. He seized Dai Yao by the neck again and dragged him to the mouth of the cave. Below, the cliff face plunged thousands of feet. The howling mountain wind whipped at Dai Yao's clothes, plastering them to his skin. His legs dangled uselessly, and the gut-wrenching sensation of weightlessness sent a wave of icy fear through him. "You little brat! How dare you? How dare you lie to me?" he yelled. "Everyone knows that an antidote can be found for poisonous substances within 3 steps of them. The jade scale snake loves cold and moisture and often resides within caves and bushes, and lotus flowers grow within water. Tell me the truth, or I'll drop you and watch you splat on the rocks below." Dugubo's voice was like ice. Dai Yao's constant lies had pushed him to the edge. If the boy didn't come clean, he would die. His lie exposed, Dai Yao knew he was cornered. Even telling the truth wouldn't save him now, so he dropped the act. His eyes flashed with defiance, and he sneered. "Don't think I don't know what you're after, old man. When I met Dugu Yen the other day, those snake eyes made me suspicious. Seeing you confirms it. You keep asking why I'm immune to the venom. You want to cure yourself." Dai Yao threw back his head and laughed, the sound echoing through the mountains. Dugubo's eyes narrowed, and his grip tightened on Dai Yao's neck as the boy's words hit home. For a moment, his resolve faltered, but then his gaze hardened, and he snarled. "Don't be ridiculous. I am Poison Douluo. No one on this planet knows more about poison than me. For 80 years, I have been poisoning others, and no one has ever been able to poison me.